Okay, getting straight into it. I received a comment which is pretty deep. I haven't actually looked up these Greek words before myself. And so I was very intrigued to receive this comment. Let's see if I can find it here. Here it is. This guy named Webster, the End of Days channel. He has researched what the Greek words are in Revelations 13 verse 16. Or actually verse 18. Here is wisdom. Let him that hath understanding count the number of the beast. He looked up the word wisdom and understanding. He also says chirasso is the Greek word for mark. Interesting, because my research shows me that charagma is the Greek word for mark, and it means an etching or piercing of the skin. Chirasso means to sharpen to a point or sharpen a point. Right? And then, of course, all of you should know, if you watch my channel, the word sorcery means pharmakia, which is where the English word pharmaceuticals come from. Revelation 18:23 says all nations will be deceived by sorcery. It's not talking about Harry Potter witchcraft sorcery. It's talking about what I just mentioned. So people will be deceived into taking it. It mentions that in Revelation 19 verse 20, which I commonly quote in my videos. So you have Revelation 18:23, all nations will be deceived by sorcery. Then Revelation 19 verse 20, which says they deceive the false prophets, speaking of Christianity and all these Christian churches and religious Bible religions. They're going to tell people to take the mark of the beast. They already are. There's literally instructional videos on YouTube saying, how should Christians respond to false information about the... It's insane. It's crazy to see. But actually it's not. It makes perfect sense that these people are deceivers because they've been teaching people not to keep God's laws. So they're already headed to hell. So having them encourage you to take the mark of the beast is actually completely fitting. So it's already, and then of course it has a ingredient called luciferus inside of the mark, which basically is Lucifer's race that they're creating. Get it? Lucifer going into your temple, declaring himself to be God. Get it? It's already starting to be mandatory, like Qantas Airlines reported and many other companies. And now, the interesting part, why I came to this. See, I've looked up most of these Greek words, but I never looked up wisdom or understanding. I kind of always knew what it's saying. It's saying people who are well-learned, well-rounded in many sources of knowledge, but that's exactly what it means. I could kind of tell what it means, but see, the reason I'm recording this video is because this verse shows you that the Most High loves smart people. You can always you always sort of were gleaning that or harvesting that information from verses like my people perish for lack of knowledge, which is obviously a bad thing. So if you're not lacking knowledge, then you won't perish for lack of knowledge, which is a good thing. So God likes that. But it was always sort of the gleanings or leftovers as far as actually seeing into the mind of God. When you read this verse, you can truly understand how God feels about people who, like me and most of you. It blew my mind to see it in such clear language. Listen to this. Hold on, let me get it. When you are reading about the mark of the beast, look up all the Greek words in the verses. In Revelation 13 verse 18, when it talks about wisdom regarding the mark of the beast, it comes from the Greek word Sophia. Greek word Strong's Concordance number 4678. That Greek word means knowledge of very diverse matters, worldly and spiritual, or spiritual and worldly. So people will need diverse knowledge to understand what the mark is. Example, science, etc., etc., etc. Laws being passed, patent numbers, ingredients, all this stuff, and scripture. You're going to need to know about all of those things, which I do. But unfortunately, I can't name some of these things as much as I used to. I've been exposing this stuff since about a year ago in April. That's when I realized what the Mark of the Beast really was going to be. It's not going to be an RFID chip. That was a false teaching introduced into the truth movement like 15 years ago, because they always knew what the mark would be. They actually had the ability to use one of these things to turn off a certain part of your brain called the VMAT2 gene inhibitor. So they've had that since 2005. So they always knew the mark wasn't an RFID chip, or wouldn't be one. An RFID chip is very limited. It can't even do anything that nanotechnology can do. So, I mean, the RFID chip idea is ridiculous. That'd be like going backwards in technology. That'd be like seeking out a 1995 cell phone, which is the size of a computer, compared to the latest smartphone. It'd be going backwards. It's ridiculous. Then the next word in that verse above is understanding. In the Greek, understanding means the intellectual ability and will or willpower to know. So understanding is the intellectual ability and willpower to know, to understand. So people have to have the intellectual ability and willingness to consider the facts behind all of this, instead of being lazy or saying, oh, I'm so sick of conspiracy theorists or theories, and being closed-minded idiots. And finally, in the verse where it says he causes both small and great, causes in the Greek is 4160 poeo, which means makes or executes. So there will be a level of force behind it eventually, which is ironic how right now it's just freely, it's just a choice. But these sheeple don't see what's lurking behind the shadows. So a lot of them will take it before they even realize what they've done. See, that's the whole plan. Don't you understand? And this verse shows us that you have to both be very well-rounded in your understanding and have had the intellectual desire to even form that understanding and seek those knowledges, seek those fields of knowledge, seek that understanding. In other words, this prohibits 99.99999999999% of people on earth from ever understanding what the mark of the beast is. They all have no chance. That's what this verse is saying. Showing you that people like me who spent their due diligence, which is an understatement, I've spent thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of hours. We're the only ones who can understand what this is. Which is why I put a couple hundred hours into making it all understandable on a single piece of paper for the average Joe Smith to understand. Which is interesting. I'll actually grab you a sample so you can understand what I'm talking about. You see here? I've printed out thousands of these, passing them out to everyone around me every day. 7 days in a row on a freaking bicycle. I biked like 120 miles last week. You know what's sad? There's some people in this world who won't even spend 10 minutes reading a piece of paper, which encompasses thousands and thousands of hours of research. So what this video that I'm making is showing us, and what I've learned from this guy's comment, is that the kingdom of heaven is for people who have that understanding and that wisdom. Let's read it again. Let's read it one more time. The word wisdom, Revelation 13 verse 18, is the Greek word Sophia, and it means knowledge of very diverse matters, spiritual and worldly. You have to understand what the Freemasons are up to. See, They control the whole world. The Bohemian Grove, the Bilderberg Group that visits every year, they form grandiose plans. The Knights Skull and Bones, Templar, and Order of the Dragon, and all these silly, satanic, billionaire, secret societal fraternities. They're controlling the whole world. Anything that happens on the mainstream platform is their doing. If you don't realize that, then you're a dumbass and you have no clue. You have no clue what's going on. See, that's the difference between people who understand who even runs the world and everyone else. They just see stuff happening and they're like, oh, that's just an organic reproduction of humanity's best intentions. Oh, it's just a coalition of people seeking the good for everyone else. No, it isn't, you idiot. People don't seek the good of anyone else, even on your own little village or city block. You think these billionaire Satanists, even if you don't know who they serve and that they're literally religious Satanists, you really think they have your best in mind? Of course not. Everyone knows that. So this shows you a certain level of laziness where people don't want to change up their lifestyle. They don't want to study. But if you look at most people's lifestyle, it's not very meaningful or important or even packed with relevant activity. They're just sitting around watching TV or fishing or I don't know. That's basically all I can think of that people do. They sit around and do nothing all day or do menial tasks like labor and gardening and fishing. That's not important. You need to study, you freaking idiots. So people will need diverse knowledge to understand what the mark is. So that's pretty freaking important. That's a huge scorn to everyone who might have told me, hey, you should stop studying Freemasonry and Agenda 21. You should just focus on the Bible. That's why I was so annoyed when I had received such a comment from one of my former mentors. He said, stop focusing on the Illuminati and all that. Just read the Bible more. And I'm like, actually, I'm ahead of you in both fields. Thanks for the advice, but I don't really need that because actually it's wrong. I can even feel it in my spirit. It's through this understanding that I'm able to understand, because you can't even understand the Bible unless you understand Freemasonry. And you can't understand Freemasonry unless you understand the Bible. They go hand in hand. It's literally like a dual totem system where you can't even excel in the one without equally excelling in the other. You either gain in none. So you're trying to move it up in this one, but you can't unless this one joins it. You have to move both, or you won't even move one. You'll actually end up moving up in neither of them, none of them. That's how this works, because there is no separation between church and state. So, however, I'm watching a Call for an Uprising YouTube channel, how he's talking about drones and all that, and to my mentor's credit, this may have been what he was saying, but it wasn't. So I'm just giving him the benefit of the doubt, even though I know what he was actually saying. What he was saying is you should stop all of this. But no, that's wrong. That's completely wrong. You have to study this stuff or you'll have no clue. So I'm glad I didn't listen to it was a demon speaking, really. I'm glad I didn't listen to that demonic attack from my own trusted mentor. 6-7 years ago, 4, 5, 6, 7 years ago. He's like, stop studying the Illuminati and that stuff. Just read the Bible more. I'm like, yeah, okay, thank you. Have a good day. I got it. Yep. However, now that I'm watching a Call for an Uprisings video on drone networks in Israel, preparing for sky networks and all this sci-fi type stuff, but it's actually reality. In 1984, we're living in it, only it's even worse. Get it? But I'm thinking about these 100,000 subscribers Call for an Uprising has, or however many hundreds of thousands he has. And I'm thinking how this actually applies to my own mentor, my own former mentor. There's a reason he's former and not current, is because I've outpaced him. Just like Call for an Uprising's viewers, they don't actually understand the way to heaven. They all think that because they're up to date on the latest evil plot against humanity that the Freemasons are undergoing, they think that as long as they stay up to date on that stuff, that they're going to be making it into the kingdom, because they're against what the Illuminati is doing. So obviously they're for Christ. That's the mindset they get stuck in. But that's false, because you're not going to be judged on whether you were part of the Illuminati or not. You're going to be judged on whether you kept God's laws or not, and whether you took the mark of the beast or not, which is interesting, because call for an uprising isn't even calling the mark of the beast the mark of the beast. He's calling it a forerunner, or a preliminary, a precursor. But it's not a precursor, it's the mark. It's most definitely the mark. It's actually overkill. The technology contained within is overkill. That's why people are literally dying from the mark. That's never happened before from these things that they call these things, which I can't actually say. They never did that before. That's because this isn't even one of these. This is way different technology. Most people are clueless. I ran into one guy whose whole foot is the size of a watermelon and his finger the size of a golf ball. He took the thing like 3 days ago, and now he can't even walk, paralyzed, basically. Yeah, I've been warning, and see, now I have even more justification for going out into my community, and passing out thousands of these things. In fact, I haven't seen a police car in like 9 days. It's like every time I go out, I never see them. And that's one thing I was worried from time to time. Are they going to try to stop me? Then I realized, wait a second, I should switch it around. I should actually want them to stop me, because then I gain like 20,000 points. That's what the Bible says. Count it all joy when you are persecuted for the sake of Christ. All these Christians think they're persecuted for the sake of Christ when they get made fun of for being Jesus freaks. That's not being persecuted for Christ. Standing up against the establishment for Christ is being persecuted for Christ. It's almost like Satan won't even allow them to harass me, because he knows how many points I'll gain, so to speak, quite literally. You should view it the exact opposite way, because we're living in an opposite world. You should want to be stopped by them. You should want to be killed by them when they start killing people who who stand up for Christ and refuse to have Lucifer put into their bodies. That's 1,000 million points. You should want that. So, that's basically it for this video. Going over one last time, Revelation 13 verse 18. The word wisdom is Sophia, Greek Strong's Concordance 4678. The Greek word means knowledge of very diverse matters, worldly and spiritual. So people will need diverse knowledge to understand what the mark is. In other words, almost no one has that knowledge because they haven't studied. Then we have understanding, again, Revelation 13 verse 18. In the Greek, it means the intellectual ability and willpower. So the understanding is the desire to find the wisdom, which is the diverse knowledge, spiritual and worldly. So you need the ability to even find it, and the willpower to spend the time finding it, and then you need to find it. That's 3 requirements. You need the desire, you need the longevity, and then you need to succeed, and that's going to take thousands of hours. So you're all fortunate that I've done the research. I spent those thousands of hours. I put my life on hold. I sought after these things. Did you? So people have to have the intellectual ability and willingness to consider the facts behind all this, but they can't do that if they don't have the facts, can they? So that's why the whole world has no clue what's going on. They don't have the facts. They don't have a freaking clue. No clue what's happening. It's sad, because I have every clue what's happening. I know exactly what's happening. I know every single detail behind every little thing that's happening, whereas everyone else doesn't have a single broad clue. They don't even have a broad inkling of a clue what's going on. I know every little specific and minute detail of everything that's going on. That's what those words wisdom and understanding mean. Revelation 13 verse 18. The desire to know, the willingness to know, the ability to freaking spend thousands of hours researching, and then you actually succeed and find the facts. Knowledge in very diverse fields, spiritual and worldly. Almost no one has that on the whole earth. I have my trophy. It's in my mind. I won. You all lost. I won. I know what this is. This shows you on a higher level than ever that the Most High values people who are willing to put in this time and do this work and find this truth. This was prophesied a freaking million years ago, and now it's happening, and no one even knows it, even though they all go to Christian church. But that doesn't mean shit, because they never teach the book of Revelation in church, do they? And if they do, they never teach it correctly. And if they even try, they never even look up the Greek words. They probably don't even know how. And if they did, they would never tell you, because they're under mandates of Freemasonic Satanists to never teach you any truth at all, especially about biblical prophecy, let alone keeping God's laws. Christianity is a sad joke for sad and sick people. You would call it happy hour, only it's not happy to be sent to hell forever. Christianity is for sad people. Christianity is for lazy people. They never even teach you about Christ's true doctrine, keep the commandments, let alone biblical prophecy. They have no clue. They don't stand a chance. It's pretty pathetic. It's disgusting.